Hi, everyone. This is Maddie with Inspiring Capital. Thank you so much for joining me on the webinar this afternoon. I really appreciate you guys taking a little bit of time out of your busy Mondays to learn a little bit more about the Inspiring Capital Summer MBA Fellowship Program. So just a couple things. I really have about 20-30 minutes of presentation to give. After that, I'm happy to leave time for questions. So if you would like, you can chat those to me in the chat box. Right now, it's a pretty small group of us, so if you'd like during that Q&A time to simply unmute yourself and ask me those questions verbally as well, you can do that, but the chat box is probably the easiest way to go. Outside of that time, I do ask that you keep yourselves muted, keep your video turned off, and that way you can kind of reduce feedback and make sure that the presentation is clear. All right, so with that being said, just to kind of go through what we will be reviewing in today's session, we will be talking a little bit about what Inspiring Capital is, what we do outside the rest of the year when we're waiting for the summer fellowship to start. We'll talk more specifically about the summer fellowship and what that looks like. We're going to skip the case study. I'll get it to do online. So we'll kind of just review that quickly, and then I'll talk some about what our fellows do kind of post Inspiring Capital Fellows looks like, and then of course go over the whole application process, give some kind of tips for how to do that successfully, and then like I said at the beginning, we'll leave plenty of time for questions and answers. All right, so started. You know, really the story of Inspiring Capital and who we are and why we exist. Our CEO and founder, Nell Voice. So Nell spent about 10 years working in the not-for-profit sector, kind of the international development space. She learned a lot during that decade of work, you know, namely that there are incredibly intelligent, motivated individuals working to do great things in the nonprofit sector. But that's kind of where those people on the ground working, you know, in the kind of issue areas were on one side of the spectrum. The money and the power was kind of all the way at the other end. And so she felt like figuring out how to infuse better business practices into the nonprofit sector would help kind of link those two areas in a more efficient and effective way. Ultimately, she decided to go to business school to figure out exactly how to do that. She graduated from a professional dual degree program with Columbia and the London School of Business. And then as any recent MBA grad does, she decided to start her own company. Inspiring Capital was born about 5.5 years ago. She originally intended it to be a nonprofit kind of consulting firm focused specifically on helping nonprofits with their earned income, so helping them come up with ideas and means of bringing in revenue outside of relying entirely on donations and grants, knowing that that money is somewhat kind of erratic and not necessarily as sustainable as one would like, and so bringing in kind of this earned income would be a way to help sustain the nonprofit, you know, despite fluctuations in donation money. So she happily got her first client, decided that she'd like some help with that project, so put out an application for intern. And for that first summer, for that one role, she got about 70 applicants back. And so in that moment, she realized that that's maybe also where her company lies, is not only in working with these not-for-profits, but in also helping to train the individuals who are also interested in this type of work. So she decided to turn that one internship spot into a full-blown fellowship, took on about 7 or 8 fellows that summer, found clients for them to work with, and the fellowship has been born out of that. And so since then, the rest of the company has grown. We now run other fellowships. We run a fellowship for women who are re-entering the workforce and looking to move into the social impact space. And now we've also kind of brought the trainings that were developed for these fellowships into more of the kind of B2B corporate world to help employees there, find impact as well. We are also a certified B Corporation. So what that means is that a B Corp is, it's a certification process just like the LEED certification on a building or the organic sticker on your Apple. That just shows that we've kind of gone through a process that proves that we take into account our impact in terms of the environment, in terms of how we treat our employees, that we do have a social mission, even though we are a for-profit company, and these are the ways that we kind of prove that. And so it's a great community to be a part of. Some of the other B Corps you've likely heard, Patagonia, Burt's Bees, Seventh Generation, Warby Parker. So it's a really neat community to be a part of. One of my colleagues is on the board of the B Local kind of chapter in New York City. And then we're also involved in the B Corp community down in Raleigh-Durham as well. So we love getting to be a part of that world. We just got our recertification in place. So we're definitely continuing to be a B Corp for at least the next few years. So yeah, that's a little bit about us. To talk more specifically about the fellowship to here. So just some kind of logistics. It's a 10-week program running from June 10th until August 16th. This will be our 6th summer running in New York City, and then our 3rd summer running in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. We will have about 10 to 12 fellows in each cohort, meaning that we'll have about 20 to 24 fellows total between the two locations. And so what does that 10 weeks look like? I'll start by breaking it down kind of week by week. So the first week, during that orientation week, we really want to kind of give you a 10,000-foot view of the social impact sector and where specifically your business skills could best fit into that. We do that using a likely familiar tactic of case studies. We happily are able to use cases from our past years doing this fellowship program. So we get to kind of take a look at past projects that fellows have worked on, kind of take a look at a couple of different things, both what the business problem was that they were tasked to work on, and what the business skills were that were required to do that, pretty standard, but also what the human problem was at this organization that caused this issue or need to arise, and what was the emotional intelligence fellow to do that work successfully. So we'll go into that a little bit deeper when I go over the case study in a few slides, but it's a really kind of interesting way to take a look at kind of, this dual-sided business problem, human problem, which is kind of what we focus and center our whole work around. So that's kind of that first week of orientation. Then for the remaining 9 weeks, you spend a week, likely Mondays, with us on kind of a learning and development dedicated day, and then the remaining 4 days a week on your consulting project. So to talk about both of those things in a bit more detail, that learning and development day, we kind of take a look at case studies again during those days, but it's also a really great chance for us to bring in outside speakers. We get to kind of do some more specific trainings on topic areas of interest like ethical marketing, B Corps, sustainability, CSR, impact investing. So really get to kind of dive deeper into topics that you all might be and kind of learning more about at this intersection of social impact and business. We also get a chance to split you up into smaller working groups and really let you kind of take advantage of the cohort model and learn from each other and each other's projects as well. So that kind of takes place on those Monday training days. Should also say that we are hosted on those days at different locations around the city that we're in, by different individuals in our network in the social impact space. So you also get to kind of have a little field trip every week, get a taste of offices they're working on and what their story is and how they ended up doing the work that they do. And then the consulting piece. So the bulk of the summer is spent on this consulting project. So you will be working for one of our social impact clients, about 60% of which are traditional for profits, and then the remaining are kind of split between social enterprise or startup or profit companies who still have a mission-driven arm to them. The way that that's split up is one project, one fellow, one client. So it really is independent work, of course, fully supported by us and our team. But what that means is that you get to kind of take advantage of, take ownership of all of the deliverables for that project from start to finish. So of course, support is provided along the way. That comes in a few different forms. We hire back on every year who we call our Fellow 2.0. They are an alum of the program from the year prior who comes back on to work with us and to kind of act as the project manager overseeing everybody's work. Be that kind of person that you have a check-in with every week in person or on the phone, so that there's an obvious person for you to go to if you are struggling in any way. Outside of that, the rest of the team does, hold office hours, schedule time for you to chat with us, to chat with Mel about how your project's going. And then, of course, you have the rest of the cohort to be there to act as support as well. So just to kind of pause for a minute and talk about what the goal of this fellowship is for us and for you all. We know that you guys are super busy, working really hard in school, and likely have had many years of work experience leading up to your MBA, in which you were moving 10,000 miles a minute, and that you likely maybe haven't had a chance to kind of take a moment and figure out kind of what your impact roadmap is in terms of your career, and how to really kind of make sure to impart impact in the work that you're doing this summer, but also moving forward. So we want to give you an opportunity to do that. And that's what that kind of personal professional development, those learning and development days are for, is to also kind of help you figure out what finding impact or meaning in your work means to you and how to utilize that to help not only improve the project that you're working on over the summer, but how to continue to embed that into the rest of your career. We do this not just because it feels good, but because it's better for the workforce. Inspired employees are 225% more productive than even satisfied employees are. So it's not just good for you. And then, of course, the other goal of the summer is to make sure that your projects go awesome. That's why we provide the support that we do. That's why the projects are pre-scoped and planned, and really meant to be projects that can be successfully completed in a relatively short amount of time, but also utilizing an MBA skill set. So we make sure to set you up for success from the beginning. All right, so these are a few examples of speakers that we've brought in on those Monday training days in the past. Really kind of the highlight here is that we bring individuals who are pretty well regarded in their field and that are excited about the chance to speak to a room full of impact-driven MBAs and are looking forward to staying connected with you all after the lunch and learn or whatever it is over. They know that they are not necessarily expected to, but they do provide their contact information and a chance to follow up with them afterwards. Part of the benefit of the summer fellowship lies with, being able to be a part of our community, our network, and we really do open that up to you. Introducing you to individuals who come to events that we host throughout the summer between you and people in Mel's LinkedIn network, or you know, happy to help you follow up with a speaker that came in, or somebody that we've worked with in the past that you think could be relevant to your project or your career path. So really happy to kind of open up our network to you all as our alumni and as our fellows as well. All right, so to talk a little bit about what the curious, I will start by saying that we do have on our website, we do have some examples of past projects that are written up as case studies. So they're linked up pretty high up on our just kind of main MBA Fellowship page. And to kind of take a deeper look into what past projects have looked like, I really suggest taking a look at the case study page on our website. Just to talk about a few now. So Greyston is a bakery. They're based up in Yonkers, New York. If you think that you haven't had a Greyston brownie before, you are wrong. You have. They make all of the brownies that are in Ben & Jerry's, and you have had a Greyston brownie. I can tell you they are delicious. They aren't just a really great bakery. They are a very, very unique social enterprise. So they instituted what's called an open hiring policy at their bakery. What this means is that they put a sign on their door, individuals signed up to be employed, to be hired, and when you were the next person on the list, you got hired, no questions asked. You just had to kind of complete their training program successfully. But once you were a part of their community, you got access to help with housing, healthcare, after school care for kids, and they really kind of were able to employ individuals who otherwise might have a difficult time getting work. So they've been doing this for a long time, since 1982, I think that says. But they recently were realizing that other organizations were super interested in this open hiring model and how it was working so well for them. And so what we did was help them figure out kind of how to replicate this open hiring policy into something that could be shared with other organizations to help them benefit from this kind of style of running a business as well. So B-Lab was a client of ours last summer. They are the nonprofit that B Corp certification process that I spoke of earlier. So it was really kind of neat getting to work with them in a different way as a client of ours this past summer. So they recently certified one of the largest multinational B Corps, I think the largest multinational B Corp in Danone. This was a big endeavor for them, and it is pretty rare. A pretty small percentage of B Corps are companies, and so what we had them, or excuse me, what they had us work on was to help them figure out kind of what made that certification process a success. We looked at some of the other larger B Corps that were successfully certified and helped them kind of figure out what the kind of common characteristics between those organizations were, so that they could continue to certify large companies. As a small company, I can say that it's a really difficult process to go through, so I can't even imagine what it's like for a huge organization. And so I think that they will really use the report that our fellow generated for them to help them figure out kind of what the common themes were for those B Corps that were big and were successful in achieving the certification. Let's see, Welcoming America is a great example of a earned income project. So this is the project type that the organization was kind of founded on, in that we were helping them come up with this kind of revenue generating kind of line of business within the nonprofit. So they are a nonprofit that helps communities become more welcoming to immigrant populations. They do this by doing trainings with local governments. So they generally give those trainings out for free, wanted to continue to be able to do that, but needed a way to kind of supplement. And so we helped them kind of figure out how to turn the trainings that they had already created for these government agencies into trainings that corporate companies could use to help their employees become more welcoming to others. And so those were trainings that they could then sell and help support the continued training of the governments for free. And then I guess finally, so Action is a microfinance nonprofit. What we helped them do was an impact assessment project. So this is a common project type for us in which we kind of help nonprofits figure out how to really kind of measure the good work that they're doing. And so this is oftentimes a difficult thing to do when it's when the work that they're doing is somewhat nebulous or hard to define. But in this case, we were able to kind of help them create a framework for how to kind of measure outcomes, measure success in a way that could be translated to funders and other individuals with a stake in the success of the nonprofit. So that's just a few examples. Otherwise, be sure to check out our the consulting kind of case studies on our website to get a little bit of a deep past project. All right. So the case study that I normally kind of presentations is about this Grit Freedom Chair, which is, Grit was a client of ours in one of our first summers. It was a team of MIT engineering students who helped design this Freedom wheelchair that looks a little different. And what it's able to do is go over terrain that traditional wheelchairs cannot. And so we're kind of unpaved roads or or surfaces that generally you would think that wheelchairs wouldn't be able to navigate. So they designed this wheelchair with the intention of distributing it free of charge to those in the developing world who might not have the kind of paved roads that we're used to. They were doing that, and then their funding was running up, and they wanted to be able to continue to do this. And so, again, this was an earned income project in which our fellow was brought in to help them come up with a way of kind of determining how to sell this wheelchair to those here in the United States who could afford to pay for it. So what we normally kind of walk through is going over in basic terms kind of what the fellow was asked to do. So both kind of figure out who the target audience is, who the target market is, and then also how to reach them. So what we kind of the pathway for this case is that the target audience was determined to be kind of a young outdoorsy individual who might have been able to go on hikes with friends and wanted to be able to continue to do that, or alternatively had no kind of outdoor sports or outdoor activities, and this wheelchair kind of enabled that. And so the kind of interesting piece, what we get to together is how to reach these individuals. And ultimately, the fellow made the recommendation to use kind of physical therapy offices to distribute this chair. And that was for a couple of reasons. A, because your physical therapist is somebody that you trust, and so you definitely are kind of putting your life, your body into this chair that looks a little bit different from what you might be used to. So you want it to be recommended to you by somebody that you trust. And then also, alternatively, you likely want to be able to try it out. It is an expensive purchase. Again, it's one that has kind of high implications for your well-being. And so being able to try it out in person with somebody who understands kind of your condition and can recommend this to you is ultimately the way that the fellow ended up deciding that we kind of talk about this case study during the info session is that it does a pretty good job of highlighting both skills. So again, some pretty standard questions there in terms of figuring out a market and how to reach them, but that there is kind of a human piece in this specific case, in that in order to figure out kind of how to best reach those individuals, you really do need to put yourself in the shoes of somebody who would be needing to use this chair and kind of make the connection that, for example, social media might not be the best way to reach these individuals, although, you know, generally you think young person, you think Instagram might be the way to go. In this case, because it is a wheelchair, because of the kind of different things that I laid out before, you know, marketing to this product to somebody online isn't necessarily the best solution. You kind of do need that human, that emotional intelligence to really be able to kind of think through that wholly and kind of reach that point to realize that an in-person recommendation by a trusted individual is the right kind of way to go here. So hopefully kind of going over those past clients, going over this case study, give you a little bit of a better sense of what the work looks like, what the clients look like, clients for next year look like. However, we always say it's true that the best indication of who our clients will be in the future, both because we will have some repeat clients next year, but also because we tend to work with kind of similar types and similar mix of not-for-profits and social enterprise across kind of the whole mission space. And so we hope to have kind of a good blend of organizations from education, from environment, from kind of children, and everything. So yeah, that's really the best I can say about our clients for next year. I'm sorry, I don't have more details yet. All right, so who should apply? What makes for a great success? We kind of, you know, ask for similar characteristics as you know, a traditional kind of us to our client, and so we want to see that you have high standards of professionalism and are you know, really able and willing to go into an organization, gain the trust and the understanding of those who work there, and really work well with the team, and really be able to kind of integrate yourself into their community and their network in order to get the kind of answers that you need. I think that the one that stands out a bit on this list is this comfort with ambiguity. Again, you know, we are a small team. What the fellowship looks like this year will likely look a little bit different than it did last year and in the year before. And so we want to be down for that and are excited to be a part of the iteration of this year's fellowship, helping us kind of get feedback for what new trainings worked, which speakers being also your clients, even though they might be large, well-established, might not have all the resources available. So getting used to kind of coming up with creative solutions to problems is important as well. This comfort with ambiguity does also come in on the fact that we do ask you to accept your offer with us before knowing who your client is. You to be a part of that conversation. We will send out a survey kind of asking for different indications of mission, but then also kind of what skill sets you'd like to utilize, what kind of project type interests you most. And so we take that into account. We take into account what the client is looking for, and then of course everything else we've learned about you throughout the recruiting process. we do that matching and let you know kind of either at the end of the spring or kind of right when you're starting with us, who that client is. All right, so what fellows are doing now? Really kind of a pretty good, there's one super kind of consistent path for our fellows. You know, we like to individuals from a variety of backgrounds into the cohort. I think that that's what makes for a really kind of unique summer experience for everyone is to get a chance to learn from people from different backgrounds. And so ultimately where fellows end up post MBA is pretty varied as well. But I would say that hopefully for us, the common theme isn't necessarily sector or type of work, but again, that we've kind of helped you figure out your impact at work and what that means in your career path and helping you kind of become the inspired employee at any type of organization that you end up at. But, you know, generally, I'd say about a quarter of our fellows come from traditional consulting backgrounds, another quarter, third come from the social impact or not-for-profit sector, and then the rest is a pretty good mix. We get lots of Teach for America grads, lots of Peace Corps return volunteers, and then individuals with startup experience, engineering backgrounds. It's really been a pretty good mix, and we hope that it continues to be. All right, so in terms of the application process, so applications are due a week from today at midnight. It's really a pretty straightforward initial application. It's a resume, a cover letter, and that's pretty much it. A couple just like demographic questions, how'd you hear about us, all that stuff. The second bit is a pre-recorded video interview. So this is meant to take the place of a first-round phone interview, really just kind of ask some more behavioral type questions and get to know you a little bit better and your reasons for applying for the fellowship. If you haven't done one before, it's really just kind of answering questions using webcam on your computer. Takes about 20 minutes from start to finish. Hopefully isn't too awkward. My biggest piece of advice here is to just plant somebody behind the screen of your computer, a friend, a dog, whoever it is. And then it feels a little bit more as opposed to be talking to your screen. Having now been 34 minutes into talking to myself during this webinar, I can appreciate that it's a little bit of an awkward process, but I promise no points deducted if your cat's meowing in the background or your roommate's microwaving food. I can promise that I've seen and heard it all. And that's not what it's about. We really just want to get to know you a little bit better. And this video interview is a great way to do that. The third step of the process here is more of kind of a written assignment. So again, a good way to kind of put yourself in the shoes of a fellow, recreate kind of a problem that might come up if you were to be working with us over the summer and kind of get your thoughts on how you'd work through that. We'll pair that with not really a phone interview, more like a phone call, check-in, likely optional, just to give you a chance to check in with us at that point, make sure that you get your questions answered, review that assignment if you'd like. So yeah, that would be around late January. And then the final interview at the final stage is a group interview that is taking place in mid-February. We will host those live in New York City as well as North Carolina, and then we will be doing those virtually as well if you can't make it in person. That is a group interview as in multiple applicants and one or two inspiring capital employees. Again, it kind of gives us a chance to recreate the cohort model of the fellowship. And you kind of get to work together with other applicants, do speaking, and yeah, I think it's a really fun day. I know it's probably a little bit more stressful on the applicant side, but it's also kind of a neat way to get to know some other individuals applying to the program. So yes, that's that. That's my email if you guys have any questions to follow up with about. And then finally, I will mention that we do the recruiting for the National Parks Business Plan internship as well. So if you have any questions about this program, it's an opportunity to live and work in a national park over the summer and do consulting work there. Main difference to point out is that it's only open to U.S. citizens or permanent residents because of the government piece. But otherwise, if you're interested in both programs, please do apply to both. You don't have to choose one. And yeah, if you have any questions about this program, I am also your main point of contact there. So feel free to reach out to me with any questions about the NPS BPI as well. All right, so that is all that I have. I will stay online for the next few minutes. If you have any questions, please feel free to chat them to me in the chat box. And otherwise, thank you all so much for joining me. All right, so I have a question about stipends for the program. So yes, there are stipends for fellows. I'm stumbling because I'm trying to remember the exact amount, but we do pay for both the North Carolina and the New York City positions. We pay a bit more in New York to kind of adjust for cost of living. I believe the final amounts for this year are around $3,500 for the summer in North Carolina and around $5,250 in New York City. We have found that usually about 90% of our fellows are able to obtain additional funding from their schools. If you have kind of a nonprofit or social enterprise kind of club, that would be a good place to start. But there tends to be kind of funding on a lot of MBA's campuses for individuals who want to go kind of a non-traditional route with their summer internship. And so our students are often able to kind of get matching funds from schools as well. But yes, there is a stipend. All right, well, I think I did a killer job because there are no more questions. But if you think of anything, please feel free to follow up with me via email. Happy to kind of follow up with phone calls or whatever it is. You know, I'm really going to be spending this week answering last minute questions and, you know, making sure that everybody who is excited to apply does apply. And so if I can be a resource to you in any way for this program or for the Parks program, then please allow me to do that. And with that, I have one final question about the opportunity to work. So yes, so in the past we have run undergrad fellowship program kind of in the summer alongside the MBA Fellowship program. The reason that I didn't bring it up in this presentation is that it's kind of a little bit up in the air exactly what that undergrad program will look like next summer. It's likely that a version of it will run in both cities or in one city. I'm not too sure yet, and so I don't want to kind of guarantee that opportunity, but it is likely that there will be, especially in New York, that there will be an opportunity if you're interested to work with an undergrad on your project as kind of a little bit of an intern for you. So thank you for bringing that up. I just don't like to make promises that I can't fulfill. So I'll be upfront and say it's not 100% sure that it will look the same this year as it has in the past. But it's likely that we will have some undergrads with us in some capacity. All right, so I think that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time. And that's that. Let's close out of this recruiting season for me. So thank you guys for participating in my last info session. And have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing your applications. Take care.